Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, born in 1698, departed in 1760. The birth of the Baal Shem Tov. Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh is one of the giants of the spirit who arose in the Jewish people, a righteous man who left his mark on future generations up to the present day, and as the year goes by, his influence is growing and expanding. He was born in the month of Elul, 1698, in the settlement of Akopai in Podolia, now Romania, to his father, Rabbi Eliezer, who was a hidden tzaddik, and to his mother, Tzaddikis Tzara. His birth involves a miraculous story. Once bandits attacked the settlement where Rabbi Elazar and Sarah lived. They took Rabbi Eliezer captive while his wife managed to escape to another city where she became a midwife and thus earned a living. Her husband was taken to a distant country where no Jews lived and sold into slavery. He served his master faithfully, and his master, who loved him, allowed him to rest on Shabbat. Many times the thought of running away came to him, but then he was told in a dream, "Don't push the time, because you still need to be in this country." Things unfolded when his master gave him as a gift to the prime minister and the king's advisor. Rabbi Eliezer pleased his new master, who gave him a private room to live, and no work was assigned to him except to present a bowl of water to his master every time he came home to wash his feet. At that time, Rabbi Eliezer studied Torah and prayed in his private room. Once, the king consulted with his advisor in connection with the war that was started against his country, but the advisor failed in his mission and was unable to satisfy the king's will. Following the loss in the war, the king was angry with his advisor, and he returned home sad and angry. When his servant Rabbi Eliezer came out to meet him with the bowl of water, the advisor did not talk to him, and the servant asked, "Master, why is your face sullen? Please tell me what is bothering you." The advisor scolded him and chased him away, but Rabbi Eliezer did not give up. He turned to his master again and again and asked him to tell him why he was so sad, until the advisor revealed him the reason. Rabbi Eliezer replied to him, "God has all the solutions. I will ask the Creator to show me how to properly conduct the war and provide you the answer." And indeed, the request was answered from heaven, and the way to win was revealed to him. The next day he told the answer to his master, who was greatly surprised by the brilliant strategy, went to the king with joy and laid it before him. When the king heard the details of the heavenly plan, he was amazed and responded, "This is not human intelligence, but divine, and I do not know you as a divine man. It is only if you are a sorcerer." Here the advisor was forced to reveal to the king from whom he received the clever solution to the war crisis. After this, the king decided to appoint Rabbi Eliezer as a military strategist, and he won all the battles. Later, the prophet Eliyahu appeared to him and said, "Because you bravely faced all the trials and did not leave the commandments of your God, even in difficult situations, a son will be born to you, and you will enlighten the eyes of Israel, and in him the verse of the prophet Isaiah will be fulfilled. Israel, in whom I shall be glorified." When he returned to his home, he found his wife alive, and after some time a son was born to them. When they were close to 100 years old, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh said about this, that his holy soul could have come only to the parents in their old age, after the evil instinct had ceased from them. The Baal Shem Tov's family was attributed to King David. When Israel was a 5-year-old boy, his father Rabbi Eliezer fell ill. He called his son and said to him, "Israel, my son, I see that I must leave this world and I will not get to raise you. But my love, remember for all your days that the Lord is with you. Therefore do not fear anything created in the world, only serve the Lord. Blessed be his name." Rabbi Eliezer died soon. A short time later, Israel's mother also passed away. Israel remembered well what his father told him before his death. Already at a young age, he began to isolate himself. He would walk alone in the great forest, delve into contemplation, and pour out his heart before the Creator in poetry and conversation that came from the depth of his soul. This is how he was able to rise to higher spiritual levels. The writings of Rabbi Adam Baal Shem. In 1710, when Israel was 12, he became an assistant of the infant teacher of a rabbi's house. He would accompany children to school while singing with them songs of faith in God. When Yisrael was 14, the acknowledged Torah tzaddik, Adam Baal Shem, died. But before his death, he commanded his son to hand over the holy writings in the hand to Rabbi Yisrael from Akapai settlement. The son inquired with the residents of Akapai, and no one should tell him who Rabbi Yisrael was until they finally realized that maybe the reference was to the young assistant of the teacher, and indeed the son of the rabbi gave him the writings. After that, the people of the settlement appointed Rabbi Yisrael as a servant of the Beit Midrash. He would study Torah all night in secret, delve into the secret writings he received from Adam's son, and during the day he would sleep. The people of the settlement thought he slept day and night. This was the way he chose at that time to hide his greatness from people. After some time, the people of the settlement married him off, but his wife died a short time later. After Rabbi Yisrael became a widower, he moved to a town near Brody, where he married Hannah, the daughter of Rabbi Ephraim Kitova, the father of Rabbi Gershom Kitova, the rabbi of the city of Brody. Rabbi Gershom, who discovered the Tanaim letter only after his father's death, was very sorry because he thought that Rabbi Yisrael was ignorant of the people of the country. But later, when he recognized his immense greatness, he became one of his distinguished students. When he was about 18 years old, the Baal Shem Tov married to his wife, the Tzaddikus Hannah. He revealed his spiritual ranks to her so that she would stand by his side and she would be of help to him. After some time, they had a daughter. The Baal Shem Tov called her Udal and said that he took her name from the verse Esh Dat Lamo, the initials of Udal. After that, his son Rav Tzvi was born. Before the Passover, Prophet Elijah appeared to him for the first time. From then on, he continued to reveal himself to him and teach him Torah. However, his main rabbi was Prophet Achia HaShiloni, who regularly descended to him from heaven and revealed to him the secrets of the Torah. In 1727, the Baal Shem Tov settled in a small village and owned a wine shop, Krachshma, which his wife managed. During 7 years, he was alone on the other side of the river, in caves and mountains between Kitov and Kosov. In those days, he experienced many fastings and difficulties, and he lived in a great hardship and poverty. When he wanted to eat, he would dig a hole in the ground, put flour and water in it, and the dough would be baked by the heat of the sun. And this was the main part of his food at the time. In the area where he used to spend in isolation, gangs of robbers lived in caves. When they discovered the Jew who was alone, they tried to harass him. But despite their numerous attempts, they never succeeded. In the end, they realized that he was of the man of God and began to respect him, and even came to him every time when a quarrel broke out between them, so that he could reconcile the parties. Thus, he secluded himself among the mountains and sanctified himself in supreme holiness until the time came for him to be revealed in the world. The revelation. 1 week, Rabbi Israel would make his way over the bridge across the river towards the city where he used to buy brandy for his shop. He secluded himself during all week in a rock-hewn cave, studied Torah and prayed while eating almost nothing. And on Shabbat evening, he bought the drink and returned to his home and brought it to his wife. His brother-in-law, Rabbi Gershom, considered at that time to be a simple person with the people of Israel who does not know Torah at all. And he constantly tried to persuade his sister to divorce her husband. She refused because she knew the greatness of her husband, Rabbi Yisrael, but he forbade her to reveal who he really was. In Kitov, there was an obsessed woman who used to reveal to everyone all their hidden deeds, good and bad. It was a phenomenon that became known all over the area. One day it occurred to Rabbi Gershom to bring his brother-in-law Rabbi Yisrael to the woman so that he would receive morals from her and come back to the right way. Rabbi Gershom asked Rabbi Moshe of Kitov to take advantage of his authority and take him to the woman, and indeed he did so. When they entered the woman's place, she said to Reb Moshe, "Welcome, holy and pure." The Baal Shem Tov entered last, and then she said, "Welcome, Rabbi Israel. Do you think I'm afraid of you? No, I'm not afraid, because I know that you were warned by heaven not to use the holy name until you were 36 years old. In fact, it was the spirit of a deceased person who entered that woman, and the spirit spoke to Rabbi Israel. Rabbi Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh ignored it because he did not want to be revealed yet. But those present asked the woman, "What are you saying?" She repeated her words several times until the Baal Shem Tov scolded her. "If you do not keep quiet, I will assemble a special of the court, and they will allow me to use the holy name, and I will expel you from this woman." The woman began to beg him, "I will keep quiet." The people who came with the Baal Shem Tov and had already realized that he was not a simple person, begged him to use the holy name so that he could drive the spirit out of the woman. But the Baal Shem Tov warned them that it was dangerous. They did not let go of him until the Baal Shem Tov turned to the spirit. "Look what you have done. Therefore my advice is that you leave the woman, and we will all learn for good." When the Baal Shem Tov asked the deceased his name, he replied, "I cannot reveal my name to many, because it will be a shame for my sons who live in the city." When people left, the deceased revealed his name. He was a well-known figure in the city. After his death, he became a ghost because of his habit of joking about God-fearing people who lived in the city. After all, he left the woman and she was safe and sound. From that day on, people in that region recognized the hidden greatness of Rabbi Israel. They did not agree that he should be a wine shop owner, and arranged for him that the position of a teacher for children was a rich man. After that, he moved to the city of Telos and also taught there. He gathered a group of people around him and held prayer meetings with them in his home. Prayers that were held loudly and enthusiastically. Even in Telos, he still lived in great poverty, but in 1734 he became known as a great tzaddik, until everyone called him Rabbi Israel Baal Shem. He left the job of teaching, and Jews from all over went to receive guidance and advice, and he be blessed by him. Over time, many students, scholars, and righteous people approached him. Mezhebush. Around 1740, his only son, Reb Tzvi, was born. From the city of Toulouse, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov moved to live in the city of Kolanoy, and from there he moved to Mezhebush, where he made his home near the famous wooden synagogue in Mezhebush. A group of disciples, Torah teachers, and tzaddikim gathered around him, along with ordinary people, watermen, woodcutters, wagon drivers, and the like, and many flocked to him from near and far to hear Torah from him. He loved them all. He became known as the Baal Shem Tov. In those days, they used to call tzaddikim Baal Shem, master of the name. Until that time, only Jews who had extensive knowledge of the Torah were important, while the common people who did not know how to study the Torah felt distant from the Creator, and therefore did not make an effort to live a holy life. The Baal Shem Tov discovered the virtue of the simple Jew who recites the Psalms, even with some mistakes. The Baal Shem Tov penetrated the hearts of his listeners, who realized that the Creator loves everyone with infinite love that does not depend on one or other actions. It is said that once a barren couple came to him and they cried before him to bless them, that they would be able to give birth to a child. The Baal Shem Tov promised them that within a year a son will be born to them. And indeed so it was. A year later they came with their toddler son to thank the Baal Shem Tov, doomed to whose blessing they were saved. When they were waiting for their turn to the entrance room crowded with people, they played with their son and had fun with him. Suddenly the door of the Baal Shem Tov's room opened. He looked at them with great love and said, "Know that much more than you love your dear son, the Creator loves the worst person." He often talked about private supervision and taught his listeners that there is not a single detail of the world, even the smallest, without a guiding hand from above. Once he was walking with his disciples, and on the side of the road a small worm was crawling. Suddenly an eagle rose from the tree and gave the worm shelter from the burning sun. "You see," Baal Shem Tov said to his disciples, "heaven wants us, show us that everything has a guiding hand. Nothing just happens." Baal Shem Tov emphasize the intention of the heart, and to illustrate to his disciples how important it was, he told them two stories. The first about a man who became known as an extreme miser. All the beggars who approached him did not receive even a single penny from him. On the other hand, there was another man in that city who became famous as a generous benefactor who always distributed charity with a generous hand. Later, the miser passed away. Then the benefactor revealed to all the townspeople, "You know, all the money I distributed all those years was not mine, but of the deceased. He gave me large amounts each time so that I could give them to charity." And why did they think he was stingy? Because he did not want to be treated with respect by men. He preferred to be despised, so that his good deeds would be solely for the glory of the Creator. The second story was about a blind violinist who made a living for many years by playing at weddings. With his eyes tied with a handkerchief, before his death he revealed to his acquaintances that he was not blind at all. But he didn't want to see inappropriate sight, so he covered his eyes with a handkerchief. In his story about these two hidden righteous people, the Baal Shem Tov taught to teach his students two messages. The first message was to pay attention only to the inside of things and not to the outside, not to invest efforts to the pleasing in the eyes of men but in the eyes of God. And the second message was never to judge a person, because one can never know his hidden secret, and the judgment is only for God. The virtue of innocence. Once it was shown from heaven to the Baal Shem Tov that one man, a simple shepherd, worships the Creator every day more than he does. The Baal Shem Tov was very eager to see him and ordered his coachman, Alexei, to harness the horses of the cart. As in many journeys, the Baal Shem Tov ordered the coachman to sit with his back to the horses, and the horses would travel by themselves to where he needed to go. The horses galloped for a long time until they reached a field at the foot of a mountain. The Baal Shem Tov looked and saw a shepherd on the mountain. The shepherd blew his shofar and all the sheep gathered to him. He watered them and they scattered here and there to eat grass. The shepherd stood up, raised his eyes to heaven and said, "Lord of the world, you are the creator of heaven and earth and all that is in them. But both my master and me and you have one people in the land, the children of Israel, who serve you in Torah and prayer all day long, and you give food and sustenance to all the inhabitants of the land, and I am also from the children of Israel. But I do not know how to worship you, since my father and mother died while I was a baby in the cradle, and a minister took me and raised me amongst the pagans. Therefore I will worship you in what way that I can." The shepherd began to blow his shofar in honor of the Creator, again and again with all his might, until he got tired and fell to the ground in exhaustion. He lay like that until his spirit returned to him, and then he said, "Lord of the world, you are the creator of heaven and earth, and you gave life and moved the whole world, but I don't know how to worship you, so I will sing to you." And the shepherd began to sing. So he sang for a long time until he got tired. When he recovered, he said, "Lord of the world, I can blow the shofar, and I blew the shofar to worship you. I can sing, and I sing to worship you, but what does that matter for the great Lord who created everything and moves everything? But there is one more thing I know how to do. I know how to stand on my head." He stood upside down, head down, with feet up for a long time until he got tired. When he recovered, he said, "Creator, what else can I do to worship you? Yesterday my master made a feast for all his servants, including me, and gave a coin to each one. I'll give the coin to you." He took the coin out of his pocket and threw it into the sky. And the Baal Shem Tov saw in that moment, in his spiritual vision, a hand coming out of the sky and receiving the coin. And yet the shepherd's mind still did not rest. And he said, "Creator of the world, here I heard that you give a wage to those who work for you. This wage I give you back." When the Baal Shem Tov saw this, he said excitedly, "The simple Jew is truly worshiping with all your heart and your soul and all your strength, not in order to receive a reward." During one of the Baal Shem Tov's journeys, he stayed in the village in the house of a simple Jewish farmer. As was his custom, the Baal Shem Tov got up at night for his holy work, and there he saw that the farmer also woke from his sleep. And he took an old siddur, very thick, and began to say with wonderful innocence the whole thing from beginning to end. Shabbat and Yom Tov prayers, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur prayers, Chanukah and Purim, and all the blessings of the Tanaim. His prayers lasted for long hours, and only when the day dawned did he finish saying the entire Siddur. When the Baal Shem Tov saw this, he was pained that such an innocent Jew would say so many blessings in vain. After the breakfast the farmer served before him, the Baal Shem Tov warned him about the seriousness of saying prayers in vain. But the farmer replied at the end, "Holy Rabbi, what can I do? When I was still a child with my father and my father died, there was no one to teach me. I don't know anything except reading the words. I only remember this, that my father used to pray with this Siddur every day. Therefore, I do like to pray with the Siddur as well. And thus I feel that I am doing my duty as a Jew, praying every day before our Father in heaven. And now, it is not enough for me that I pray with great effort. I will also receive a great punishment for that." When the Baal Shem Tov heard his heartfelt words, he asked, "If I teach you the order of the prayers, will you observe it?" The farmer responded, "With great joy, I will certainly do as you say. I provided that I escape the severe punishment. If so," said the Baal Shem Tov, "bring me a bundle of straw from the yard." The farmer brought a bundle of straw, and the Baal Shem Tov took one large stalk and placed it in the morning prayer. And then he placed a small stalk from it in the mincha prayer, and thus marked for him the Shabbat and holiday prayers. The Baal Shem Tov repeated the order several times until the farmer knew very well each straw for which prayer it marked, and was very happy that now he knew how to pray each prayer at its time. He thanked the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov went on his way. But hardly an hour passed, and his joy of the world disappeared. The arrangement was blown from his hand, and all the stalks of straw were scattered on the ground. The farmer was broken and lost. What will he do now that he has an arrangement and is not allowed to pray? With his great heart, he ran outside lest he should catch up with the Baal Shem Tov on his way. In his running, he reached the bank of the river, where he saw from afar the Baal Shem Tov sailing in the river on top of a cloth handkerchief without a boat or a ferry. So he began to shout with all his might, "Rabbi, Rabbi, save me." However, the distance between them was very large, and his voice was not heard at all. In most of his bitterness, he did not think at all and took the risk to do something like the Baal Shem Tov did. He placed his handkerchief on the river and started swimming on it. And he came close to the Baal Shem Tov and shouted, "Rabbi, the arrangement has fallen." The Baal Shem Tov turned his face to him and saw him also sailing on his handkerchief, and understood in his Holy Spirit that his prayers, said in truth and innocence without any appeals but for the glory of the Creator alone, made a great impression in heaven, to the point that he was able to sail on the river on top of his handkerchief. The Baal Shem Tov answered and said to the farmer, "If you can do the same as I did, go back to your home and return to praying as you always did." The journey of the Baal Shem Tov to Eretz Yisrael. The Baal Shem Tov longed very much to travel to the Holy Land. One of the reasons for his desire was to meet with the great Kabbalist Rabbi Chaim ben Attar, or known as the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. According to the Kabbalah, if they had met in the land of Israel, redemption would have come, because Rabbi Chaim achieved perfection in the Torah, and the Baal Shem Tov had perfection in prayer, and their joining together would bring redemption. In winter 1743, the Baal Shem Tov sets out on his long journey to Israel together with his daughter Udal and his servant Rabbi Hirsch Sofer. The custom of the Baal Shem Tov was to travel without keeping any money for everyday expenses. He also did this during his trip to the land of Israel. He made sure every day to cover his expenses for that day. And so he traveled from village to village and from city to city and trusted in God to help him with all his needs everywhere. And so they traveled, he, his daughter, and his servant, until they arrived on the eve of Pesach in Istanbul, Turkey. At that time, a rich Jew lived in Berlin, Germany, who had been childless for many years. He heard about the Baal Shem Tov and the miracles he was working and his loved ones advised him to go to the Baal Shem and ask him for a blessing that he would have sons, and so he did. He prepared a chariot with knightly horses, equipped himself with a lot of money, and made the way for hours from Berlin to Zerberguj. When he came to Mezhebuj and inquired where the tzaddik was, the members of the household told him that he had recently traveled from here on his way to the land of Israel. The rich man asked which way he traveled and chased him to catch up with him. And wherever he went, he was told he had recently departed from here, until he also arrived in Istanbul on the eve of Pesach. For he was rich. He rented a nice room in a rich apartment on the top floor of a hotel and made sure to prepare everything for the holiday. When he finished preparing everything, he went to look for the Baal Shem Tov. He came to the conclusion that in a big city like Istanbul, it would surely be difficult to find the Baal Shem Tov, and decided to go to the beach where all the travelers arrived to find out if they had seen the Baal Shem Tov, and in case they knew where he was staying. When the Baal Shem Tov arrived in Istanbul, he also turned to the same hotel, but since he had no means, he rented a small room in the basement, while the upper floor was rented by the rich man. His daughter Udal asked him again and again, "Father, what will we eat on the Seder night and during all Pesach?" Her father didn't answer, only said, "God will provide. God will provide." In the meantime, he went to the synagogue and stayed there, and she, because of her confidence in her father's words, did not worry at all again, and went to wash her clothes for the holiday at the beach. When the rich man saw her washing the clothes in water, he approached her and asked if she had seen the Baal Shem Tov come here. And to his surprise, she answered him, "The Baal Shem Tov is my father, and he is staying in a certain hotel on the bottom floor." The rich man was very happy. What's more, he is there in the same hotel. Then he said to her, "You are all invited to dine with us throughout the holiday, and we have prepared everything in abundance." When Udal returned and told her father with great joy about the miracle that God had done for them, prepared a nice place to hold the Seder, she did not see any change in her father's face. With his great confidence in the Creator, he knew even before that everything would fall into place in peace, and there was nothing to worry about at all. After the evening prayer of the holiday, the Baal Shem Tov went straight into the rich man's room. He didn't talk too much, but immediately started reciting the Seder as he did with enthusiasm. And in the middle of the Seder, he suddenly turned to the rich man and his wife and said to them, "I know what you came here for. You have already worked out the salvation." Immediately after the Baal Shem Tov said these words, he closed his eyes and lowered his head. It was evident that he was in great distress, and even signs of dying were already visible on him. Everyone looked at him in fear and did not understand the meaning of this. In the meantime, he was suddenly heard saying, "Then I will worship God, blessed be He forever and ever." Moments later, his face lit up with a great light, and great joy washed over them. Later, when his daughter Udal asked him what was going on with him in those moments, he told her, "When I blessed the couple that they should have children, a great accusation came on me from heaven, and I was told, the couple is barren from birth, and it was impossible for them to give birth at all. Now, because of the blessing you granted them, the systems of nature need to be changed for them. So it was decided that they will take all your part in the next world." When I heard this, the Baal Shem Tov continued, "I happily said, then I will worship God without reward in the world to come. That way I can serve Him without any contact and personal touch at all. With my devotion to the work of Creator was seen in heaven." They stopped and said that I will win again in the next world, and the barren couple will also win children. From this came the great joy and light in my face. He continued to recite the Seder with great enthusiasm without any unnecessary talk, and when he came to the verse from the Psalms, "He alone does great wonders," he repeatedly said the words, He alone, with a great emphasis. At that very time, a real drama took place in Istanbul. The Sultan, under the influence of his ministers and advisors, sentenced all the Jews to death on one day, the first day of Passover. The ministers swore to each other that they would not reveal the decree to anyone from the outside, so that the Jews would not act to cancel it. And whoever leaks the plan, he will also be killed. Among the ministers, there was one minister who loved Israel. Horrified by the cruel decree on innocent people, women and children, he went into a panic on the night of Pesach to the head of the Jewish community and secretly revealed the plot to him. My life will be in danger if it becomes known to the Sultan that you know about this decree, and therefore I cannot advise you to try to influence him. I only came to inform you that you should know about the trouble that is about to come upon you and know what is in front of you, to give advice on the matter. The head of the community immediately summoned the rabbis of the city to consult with them together about what to do. They decided that since the Sultan's old mother loved Jews, they would go to her and consult with her wisely about what to do. They quickly finished making the Seder and went out together to the Sultan's mother's palace. On their way, they passed by the hotel where the Baal Shem Tov was staying and heard how he repeated over and over again the verse, "To do great wonders alone, he alone," they said to each other. If this Jew had known about the terrible decree hovering over the Jewish residents of the city, he would not have been so enthusiastic. When they arrived at the queen's palace and asked to enter it urgently, the queen was very frightened. She realized that something unusual had happened. As always, she received them with a warm welcome. They told her about the decree that her son planned for the Jewish residents of the city and begged her to use her wisdom to cancel the decree without her son knowing that they were with her. By the grace of God, the Sultan's mother came up with an idea. She immediately went out, even though it was in the middle of the night, to her son's palace and woke him from his sleep. The Sultan was startled and stood up anxiously. "Listen, my son," she said to him with a frightened face. "My husband, your father, the late Sultan, came to me in a dream with his face sullen and told me that he had no rest and peace in the real world, because by the next morning there will not be a remnant of his sons and his grandsons left, and they will be lost forever and ever. Tell me, my son, what terrible thing happened in the royal palace, because which of our family was decreed such a terrible torture?" The horrified Sultan began to list all kinds of injustices which may have caused the decree, and his mother canceled them one by one. No, it is inconceivable that because of this injustice such a terrible decree would be decreed upon our family. She asked to see the Sultan's personal notebook. She started flipping through it until she came to the page where the decree on the Jews was written. Here her face was contorted and a cry erupted from her mouth. "What? Passing such a wicked decree on the Jews, and don't you know that everyone who wronged them in the end did not end well? Pharaoh and his soldiers drowned in the Red Sea. Haman and his sons were hanged on the tree, and so many more. Cancel quickly this decree lest it be too late." Out of fear, the Sultan immediately tore up the written decree on the spot and assured his mother that it was null and void. The queen returned to her palace and joyfully announced to the head of the Jewish community and the rabbis who were waiting for her that the danger had passed, and they would return to their homes and inform the Jews that they would thank God for the great miracle he had done for them without their knowledge. On their way back, the members of the delegation again passed by the hotel where the Baal Shem Tov was staying and heard to their surprise how he was still standing with the words, "To do great wonders alone. He alone," but now they noticed that he was saying this with joy, much more than which was heard earlier. The next day, rabbis of the synagogue told all the worshippers about the great miracle that happened that night and casually mentioned the strange Jew who repeated the words "alone" many times. The Baal Shem Tov, who was present in the synagogue, passed by them without them recognize him. If it wasn't for this Jew, the great miracle would not have happened. The couple wanted to give the Baal Shem Tov a large amount of money for the blessing in their heart, but he did not agree to take it, but only that they give him and his daughter and used it as the travel expenses for sailing to the land of Israel. Indeed, they gave him the necessary amount, and on the first day of the Passover holiday, they rented seats on a ship to Israel. It is said earlier, the Baal Shem Tov had told the servant Rabbi Hirsch and his daughter, Udal, that he knew the holy name, and it was possible to reach Eretz Yisrael by any means, including supernatural ones. and even on a piece of cloth spread over the waters of the sea, and so they could reach the port of Jaffa in the land of Israel, but on the condition that they would not stop directing their thoughts to this holy name, even for a single moment. Udal responded immediately that she was ready for this. However, Rabbi Hirsch was afraid to undertake such a thing. Therefore, they set out on a journey in a natural way. At first, the voyage proceeded on calm waters, but suddenly a strong wind began to blow. The ship tossed like a nutshell in mighty waters. Trying to save themselves, the passengers began to throw various things into the water to lighten the weight of the ship, but it didn't help. Suddenly, the Baal Shem Tov was heard saying, "I know why the sea is raging. There is a command from heaven, whether it would be my holy writings or my daughter Udal. One of the two must be tossed." Udal didn't think for more than a few moments. "I am ready to be thrown into the sea. The main thing is that my father's teachings remain in the world." She boldly announced she was genuinely ready to give her life for the teachings of a great father. But then she suddenly received the great illumination of the Holy Spirit, and she said, "I see that a grandson will come out of me, a very great and righteous man who will also write holy and wonderful writings that will enlighten the world." Following her words, they threw the Baal Shem Tov's writings into the sea, and the sea calmed down. Only now did the captain notice that they were close to an island in the middle of the sea. He approached the island and anchored it, and the exhausted passengers disembarked to rest on the stable ground. While the Baal Shem Tov, his daughter, and his servant were traveling on the island, they were suddenly attacked by barbarian natives who tied them to each other on the ground and began sharpening their knives. Frightened, Rabbi Hirsch began to shout, "Rabbi, why are you silent?" The Baal Shem Tov answered him, "I am not able to think. I don't know why." The robbers approached him, and again Rabbi Hirsch shouted, "Rabbi, why are you silent and not doing anything to save us?" And the Baal Shem Tov answered him, "I don't know anything. Maybe you know something?" Rabbi Hirsch answered, "I too have forgotten everything. I only know the Aleph Bet." Rabbi Hirsch began to say Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. Suddenly, there was the sound of a chariot and the galloping of horses coming and going. The robbers were frightened and quickly fled the scene. When the wagon passengers saw the people lying on the ground, they untied their links and set them free. The Baal Shem Tov and his companions got back on the ship, and it sailed on its way. On Shvi Shel Pesach, it became clear to them they had made a mistake on the way, and that the ship had returned to Istanbul. Following this, the Baal Shem Tov returned from his trip to Eretz Yisrael. Following the miracle of his rescue, it is customary in all Hasidic communities in the world to hold the feast of thanksgiving to God on the seventh day of Passover and recount the miracle of his holy rescue. The Baal Shem Tov lived in the city of Mezhebuzh until his death on Shavuot in 1760. At the beginning of that year, on the night of Yom Kippur, he used to say to his wife, "Know that this year we will both leave the world, but choose whether you want to die first or me." His wife told him that she wanted to die first. "If so, so be it," said the Baal Shem Tov. And indeed, the Rabbanit died on the second day of Passover. 2 months later, on the second day of Shavuot, the Baal Shem Tov with his students sat with and taught them Torah, and suddenly he saw the angel of death in front of him. He scolded him, "What do you want? I still have 8 hours. You cannot yet take them from me." He continued to teach his students, and then told his son Reb Tzvi and his son-in-law Rabbi Yechiel that all the students should leave him and only the 2 of them would remain, and they did so. And they heard the Baal Shem Tov saying, "Welcome, welcome, you are not a guest." The Baal Shem Tov secretly gave his son the words of his will, and then his disciples came back in. His son-in-law Rabbi Yechiel began to cry. "Why are you crying?" the Baal Shem Tov asked him. "I'm crying for my master," answered he, adding, "But one thing I want you to tell me. To whom did you say welcome?" And so the Baal Shem Tov answered him, "Know that I am a spark from the soul of David, King of Israel." And for David's honor, the Holy Fathers also came to accompany me. And for me, they are guests, and this is the first time I have seen them. But the one to whom I said, "You are not a guest," was the prophet Elijah. I remember well that he is not a guest because It has been 36 years since he has been with me. Surely he is not a guest. And the angel of death entered again. The Baal Shem Tov said to him, Why did you come? I still have 2 hours. But what will I do? I will leave them to my son. The Baal Shem Tov placed his head on the bed and returned his pure soul to the Creator. His holy sign. The holy grave of the Baal Shem Tov was situated in the ancient cemetery of Mezhevush, where at the time there were graves nearly 300 years old, from the beginning of the Jewish settlement there. According to the commandment of the Baal Shem Tov, his grave was situated to the right of the Tzaddik's Rabbi Leibish's grave, who was one of his faithful followers and was living about 2 years before him. According to the chart preserved in the hands of Rav Moshe Bick, the last rabbi of Mezhevush, the following were buried on the right of the Baal Shem Tov's grave: his great student Rav Tzvi Kitzes, the judge Rabbi Monish, and in a later period the rabbi of the settlement, Rabbi Be'er Shakon Rappaport. To the Baal Shem Tov's grave they led a path on the left of which goes to the Baal Shem Tov's grandson Rabbi Ephraim of Shlodikov, and to his right the other grandson Reb Baruch of Mezhevush. On the right of Reb Baruch lies the Tzaddik of Apta, great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov used to say, The grave of my grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov, is holy in the holiness of the land of Israel, and it is very good to come and pray there. He himself, even as a small boy in Mezhevush, would often come to pray at his great-grandfather's grave. When the Tzaddik of Apta, the author of the book Ohev Yisrael, came for the first time to pray at the grave of the holy Baal Shem Tov, he reverently recited the verse, Take off your shoes from off your feet, for the place on which you stand is holy ground. Until the outbreak of World War II, there was a wooden tent on the holy grave of the Baal Shem Tov, while the place serving as a center of attraction for thousands of Jews from all over the world who gathered to pour out their hearts in the holy place. During the war, the entire cemetery was damaged, as well as the wooden tent, which disappeared. After the war, the Jews who remained in the place made a concrete slab on the gravesite. The place was renovated several times until the beautiful building was built by the Ahalei Tzadikim Association, which maintains the place all year round. To this day, everyone who comes to the grave of the Baal Shem Tov testifies to an uplifting spiritual feeling that surrounds him. People of different religions usually visit the place in times of trouble and pray for salvation thanks to the Tzaddik, the heritage of the Baal Shem Tov. As mentioned, the writings of the Baal Shem Tov did not survive. His teachings, which were nicknamed Torah's Hasidus, were passed on to future generations by his students. Amongst them, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polnoi, author of the holy books Toldat Yaakov Yosef, Ben Pora Yosef, Tzvanat Paneach, and Ketunat Pasim. Magid Rabbi Dov Ben of Mezerich, who, although he did not write books himself, is considered one of the greatest of the legacy of the Baal Shem Tov, and raised the generations of students who were tzaddikim themselves and who spread the teachings of Hasidim in the world. More of his greatest students, Reb Pinchas of Koritz, the Maggid Rabbi Nachman of Chernobyl, Reb Gershon of Kitav, brother-in-law of the Baal Shem Tov, Reb Chaim of Krasner, Reb Hirsch Seifert, Reb Shabtai Mokshov, Reb David of Mikolov, Reb David Lakis, Reb David Fox, Reb Zev Wolf Kitzis, Reb Yehuda Lev of Polnia, the Mokshin, Reb Meir of Mashnij, Reb Nachman of Horidenke, Reb Shmuel of Kaminka, Reb Alexander Shochet, Reb Yitzhak Adrovich, and his son Reb Yechiel Michal of Mazachev, Rabbi Nachman of Kosov, Rabbi Nachman Mendel of Bar, and many others. The main biographical book, Praises of the Baal Shem Tov, is written by his student Reb Dov Ber of Linz. He added stories he heard from other students, mainly from Rabbi Gedalia of Linz. The book was handwritten in many copies and distributed amongst the Hasidim. It was then printed for the first time in 1815 and then published in many editions. The Baal Shem Tov sayings: sadness locks the gates of heaven, prayer opens the locked gates, and joy has the power to break down walls. A man is where his thoughts are. The world is full of divine sights, but a small hand in front of his eyes hides what can be seen. Everything a person sees or hears contains a message and a lesson for the work of the Creator.